just like deep sleep, when we are in deep relaxation, there's a lot of repair going on. Where a lot of the great neurotransmitters and these endorphins that make us feel really good are kicking in and doing great work in the body and the mind, meaning they can work on mood disorders as well.
Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Soul Sessions with Creative Mind. I'm Deborah Maldonado. I'm here with Robert Maldonado.
Nice to be here.
And we are continuing our series on mind, body, health, and wellness. Before we get started, I'd love for you to not miss an episode of this podcast by clicking on subscribe on whatever apparatus you're listening to our podcast on, iTunes, Spotify. If you're watching us on YouTube, you could just push the little button in the corner here on the video and make sure you get every episode. So today's title is The Extraordinary Power of Sleep.
That's what I was going to say. It's our continuing series on the mind-body.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get into the contents of the program, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we see the mind-body.
Okay.
So if you think about Western culture and science, the way it sees the body is as a physical, biological entity. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a paradigm based on the philosophy of materialism and realism, meaning that reality or the physical reality is considered the foundation of reality. Biology, physicality is considered to be true and the true nature of the universe. There's another paradigm, though, that comes from the East, and that is the consciousness paradigm that says that's not really what's happening. What is happening is there's a foundational power called consciousness, awareness, pure awareness, in which this phenomena that we call the universe arises. Now, we are using that consciousness paradigm, not the Western paradigm of physicality.
So what you're saying is that there's more to us than what we can perceive with our senses.
That's right. The implications are really profound, and they really they really kind of throw everything into question, the way we've been approaching our minds and our bodies. And so it allows us a new perspective. And of course, one of them is this idea of the mind-body being one, and the mind being able to influence the body directly.
Mm-hmm.
And it, of course, it's a two-way communication, but both the mind and the body are arising from this deeper element called consciousness or pure awareness. And then they're having a conversation. There's a conversation between what we call our individual mind and our individual body. They're conversing continuously. And then these mind-body methods or approaches to health and wellness allow us to intervene in that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Instead of letting it happen unconsciously.
That's
like
right.
Letting the gossip of the mind body say, set the tone for your health, for your wellness, for your state of mind. You can actually direct your life.
Yes.
Which is always the best way to go.
Yes. So keep that in mind as we go through the content, so it'll make sense to you. So the extraordinary power of sleep. And it is really extraordinary. It is an extraordinary thing.
I love to sleep.
Me too. And I love to dream. Mm-hmm. And we know we all do this. Mm-hmm. And we all need to do this. It's not optional. Mm-hmm. You cannot live without sleeping. You have to include sleep in somewhere in your life. Of course, within that 24-hour cycle, preferably. And the research shows that 7 hours is optimal for adults. And then if it starts to drop be below 6.5 hours of sleep, it starts to correlate with a lot of diseases, hypertension, diabetes, depression, anxiety, not only physical, but psychological problems.
And I can tell you from firsthand experience the profound, I've always had no problem sleeping, so it was hard for me to conceptualize someone who couldn't sleep. And I remember when I first started doing hypnotherapy, I did a lot of work with insomnia, and this woman walked in and she hadn't slept in decades for more than 1 or 2 hours a night. And you could just see how the effect it had on her body. And she was like that kind of, we've all had those days where we wake up and we're exhausted. Imagine that happening for decades. And so it was affecting everything about her. And she was trying everything to get to sleep. And of course I was able to help her, but it's really profound, like just the physical appearance of someone who hasn't had a good sleep.
Absolutely. And so in yoga philosophy, they describe 3 states of mind that we all experience. Actually 4, but I'll talk about why the 4th is a special circumstance. Obviously, the waking state of mind that we all are experiencing right now. If you're listening to this, you're most likely awake. The second one is the dreaming state. And we all know dreams. And it's important to remember our dreams because they carry a lot of messages and all that, but it's an important function. We know from research that if people are not allowed to dream, in other words, they're allowed to sleep,
but not go to that dream state?
What they do is they wake them up when they start to see the REM pattern show up, the rapid eye movement, which is dreaming, and they would wake them up and then let them go back to sleep, to deep sleep. It would impair their cognitive functioning.
Wow.
They couldn't problem solve.
Even if you can't remember the dreams, just dreaming itself, even if you don't recall them, is still an important stage.
Yes. So the dreaming is the second stage. The deep sleep state, though, is really extraordinary because when you don't allow a person to go into deep sleep in the lab, and this is in research,
what are they doing to these poor people in the research?
They're volunteers.
Yeah, I know.
And of course, they sign a waiver.
Sign the waiver.
Sign the waiver. They start to get ill, literally. Their body starts to break down. And if it goes on long enough, they do that with animals, of course, not with humans. But when they continue that pattern of not being able to go into deep sleep, they die.
Well, they don't let them die, though.
No, in animals.
Oh.
They let them die, yes. Because researchers want to find out what happens, right? And then they dissect the body and understand, this is what's going on. This is so heart disease, arthritis, rapid aging happens when, like you were saying, the woman you were describing.
She was only in her 30s, and she just felt like someone who had been like had the energy of like an 80-year-old, just like very heavy and kind of like a heavy mind, just like not all 80-year-olds like that, but when you get older and you get more, it's very lethargic and not very sharp, kind of dull cognition and just sad.
Yes, it impacts mood. Definitely impacts mood. So that deep sleep that you experience during the night, every 24 hours, hopefully, and hopefully you're getting at least 7 hours of sleep. So you're getting some good time into that deep sleep state, is necessary to restore the body physically, to reconstruct it from the inside out. All kinds of stuff is going on. Of course, growth hormones are kicking in, repair of the body tissue. Just a deep, restful sleep is so necessary for active, healthy life. So in yoga philosophy, that's described as sipping the nectar of immortality. Without that sipping of the nectar, you start to get ill.
So it's that nectar of immortality is like that vital force. Like you were saying, the consciousness is a conscious world, like where it's more than just the mind and what we can see. Yeah. We're actually tapping into that other place.
It's an extraordinary...
We're having spiritual experiences every night. We just don't remember them.
That's right. Well, dreaming, if you just consider it phenomenologically, what it is, we're in these different virtual realities, experiencing color, sound, emotion, the 3D experience, and then waking back up to...
Well, I guess you can say life is a spiritual experience as well. But I guess that profound spiritual experience, I should say, happens in that deep sleep.
Yes, Carl Jung says we forget that throughout history, the way God spoke to his people was through dreams most of the time. You know, in many, in all cultures, I would say. So the fourth state that is described in yoga philosophy in the Upanishads it's called Turiya, which means the fourth. But it is considered the consciousness, the pure awareness that allows these other three states to exist.
Kind of like the ocean of consciousness, and we emerge from that the deep sleep kind of touches the surface, and then there's the dreaming, they get a little closer, and then the waking is above the surface.
Waking is the furthest from that. That's why we require that restorative energy to expand while we're awake and doing things. And then we start to get tired, and we want to go back to sleep to restore, to refuel.
Yeah, there's people that you hear people say, I only sleep 4 hours a night and I'm up, and they're constantly chasing material things, and those super high achiever people. But then is that really healthy? After a while, they're going to suffer from that. Unless they do yoga during the day and do some really deep restorative practices to balance out that lack of sleep. Would that be possible?
That's right. The meditation practices are designed to consciously go into this deep state.
Oh, okay.
It's not deep sleep, obviously. It's meditation, but you reach that deep level where you're able to take a drink from the nectar of immortality. And so a few hours of meditation has the same impact as 8 hours of sleep.
Wow.
So you can do it in a lot shorter time.
But they're too busy making their deals to sit and meditate for hours, maybe. I don't know. But maybe that's how they balance it out. But, you hear a lot of people brag that they only need a certain amount of sleep, but I wonder what's really happening on the physiological level for them. But let's talk about people who can't get to this place. I mean, I think everyone can relate to those times where you're worried about something, you're going through a change in your life, a transition, and you have a hard time sleeping. Yeah. You're worried about something, or yourself. You have like pain or illness, and you can't relax. Your body is preventing you from sleeping. We've all had that. But then there's that other state where if it lasts longer than a couple months, a couple weeks, it's chronic. It's a sleep disorder. Yeah,
absolutely. So I have here a paper that mentions some of the sleep disorders, and I'm just going to mention 3 of them. They're general categories of sleep problems, and you might recognize some of them, some of these problems in yourself. The first one is sleep-related breathing disorders. We know obstructive sleep apnea. That's a lot of people are reporting this, right? That they're having sleep apnea, which means a cessation of breathing during your sleep cycle.
And they've done sleep studies, and they realize. Some people in my family they had said that they stopped breathing 12 times a night or something like that, and that's not good. And then some people have to, because of that, they do the sleep study, and then they do the CPAP machine, which is helping them breathe and keeping them alive. But is that really it's good, but it's still that intervention from the external.
Yeah, exactly. You're treating the problem, not the cause.
The cause, yeah.
Not the source. You're not going to the source. So we'll talk about how do we approach
Yes.
these kind of problems. The second was circadian rhythm sleep-wake disorders. So this would be like shift workers who work at night. I used to work at night because I worked my way through college working at hospitals, and the night shift was the easiest one for me. Nobody wanted to work it, and
Everyone left you alone. Some
Yes.
people love the night shift because it's like less dramatic. Although in a hospital, I'm sure it's probably a more active time.
It's intense. It can be jet lag. Most of us have experienced some kind of jet lag. This is messing with our circadian rhythm.
And could you
sleep-wake.
describe what circadian rhythm is?
So
Or-
the circadian rhythm is an internal clock that keeps us on track. And there's been research. There was a really interesting experiment that one person did. What he did is he went into a tunnel where he couldn't see any light from
I
the
was
outside
thinking
world.
about that. That would be an interesting. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. Someone did it.
And he just recorded his sleep-wake cycles, like when he would get tired and sleep, and then how long he would sleep and wake up. And
So he wouldn't know
forth.
what the time was.
He wouldn't know what the time was. He couldn't see the light.
So what did he record?
He would record the length of time, not the actual time. that was
Oh, okay,
outside.
okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So anyway, it verifies, and other experiments have verified that there's an internal clock that kind of plays out that rhythm. Now it does tend to synchronize with light patterns, meaning the rising and setting of the sun. But when we're not able to see the rising and setting of the sun, or we travel against
Like going to Europe and
the different time zones,
yeah.
then our internal clock is confused, and so we experience that jet lag.
I know. When we go, we just went in May, and just taking that couple days to just get back to a sleep cycle that's balanced again. It takes a couple days,
Yes.
and then when you come back, you have to do the opposite again. But that is a very powerful clock we have in our system.
Yeah, so you can imagine there are workers who work chaotic shifts, because there were people that would rotate shifts, meaning they would work in the morning for a few weeks or months, and then they'd shift to 3 to 11, which is the evening shift, and then to night shift. So that's a terrible way to live, because your internal clock would never be able to adjust and get used to a typical normal rhythm.
Even people who travel for a living internationally, they're in different countries and they're waking up at different times and meetings, and you can't just like decide to sleep the whole day because where your old time zone is date nighttime. So you have to kind of adjust, and I'm sure that causes a lot.
The third category is they're called parasomnias, meaning abnormal sleep patterns, right? You're not sleeping well. Sleep terrors, common disorder reported more and more. Children, adults. This is where you wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat. You know you were in some kind of dangerous, or it feels like you were in some kind of dangerous situation, but often you can't remember.
You're just afraid when you wake up.
You're in terror. I mean, it's called
Could it be
sleep terror.
something like like a trauma that happened to you, and then you keep reliving it in your
It
dream?
correlates, yes. It correlates, meaning we can't make that connection, right, to say that caused it, but there's a strong correlation with trauma. Yeah, people that have experienced traumas, of course, not the same as nightmares.
Oh yeah.
Nightmares are a little bit different, but
But even nightmares, I found, I worked with children. A lot of times the kid would have a recurring nightmare, or they would dream of this monster. And then I would have them do guided imagery around the monster and like make it into something else. And then that would basically stop the pattern. It's like like the dream, helping the child be in control of, they can change it into whatever they want. So yeah, it's really, that interrupts kids' sleep. And then they're afraid to go to sleep because they're afraid of having that dream again. So it creates a pattern.
sleepwalking Most families have at least one person that at some point in their life was a sleepwalker. You told me a story of somebody who would get up and do a whole meal or something.
Yeah, a friend of mine, her client would wake up every morning, and her kitchen was like she had a meal that night, and it wasn't the dinner she had, it was something else. And she realized that every night she was getting up, sleepwalking, making a complete meal, eating it, and going to sleep, but not being conscious the whole time. And then she came to her to find out, how do I stop doing this? Because I'm starting to gain weight. I don't need this extra meal, but why am I doing this? Why am I waking up? And so I think that also, sometimes that is, well, you said everything's genetic, but a lot of times that runs in families, that sleepwalking.
Yes, and then there are a whole lot of disorders around rapid eye movement disorders, where maybe the individual acts out their dreams. In typical dreaming, the muscles are actually paralyzed. There's a mechanism that turns off the muscles so you don't act out your dreams. You're essentially paralyzed, while you're the only muscles that are not paralyzed are your eye muscles. So your eyes are darting around looking at the objects in your dreams, but you're not able to move your body.
And then some people report sleep paralysis, where you wake up but you're still half asleep and you can't move your body, and it's a very scary place to be. What is that?
Yeah, it's precisely what you said.
Sleep paralysis.
Your body is in REM mode, meaning your body's paralyzed, but your brain is awake, and you're caught in between that stage, and so for all practical purposes, you're paralyzed, but you're awake.
It's almost like you woke up too fast or something. Like you didn't go through that REM state to get through the cycle, and you just kind of switched on, but not all the mechanisms turned off yet.
The ideal is to wake up from a deep sleep or a stage 1 or 2 level, so that you weren't necessarily dreaming right as you woke up, but you were in sleep.
I remember they had clocks, and my alarm does this too, which I don't need an alarm anymore. I just kind of wake up the same time every day. If you have a pattern of time to go to sleep every day, it repeats it, right? You kind of get into a rhythm. But they say that alarm clock, it shouldn't be like this blaring sound to wake you up. You should have this like gentle, let it get louder and louder so you can enter the waking life in a more gentle way.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how do we, or what are some of the ways to approach these sleep problems using the mind-body philosophy. Right? The idea that the mind and the body are one, and that there's this deeper awareness in us that is above or kind of the foundation of both the mind and the body. So relaxation, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And most people forget this principle, that if you know how to relax in a conscious way, meaning not by
exhaustion, like, oh, I'm going to just collapse into bed.
Right. You have a way to relax yourself, meaning that the mind can guide the body into deep states of relaxation. And right now there's so many YouTube videos that you can access that guide you through that deep relaxation.
Or even just the music has like a relaxing element to it.
Yes, but it's better to learn
how to do it
systematically. Some begin at the head, some begin at the feet, but it touches on every part of your body, and you're consciously paying attention to it. You're either contracting the muscles and then relaxing them, or simply paying attention to them and asking your body to relax.
And then,
yeah,
I was going to say, like progressive relaxation, it's called. It's like from the top of the head down to the toes. And you can do that with light. You can do it with just imagining that part of your body being relaxed. And at the end of this, I will give you all my secret weapon to getting to sleep when I'm worried about something. It works like a charm. Hypnosis, I worked with a lot of people with insomnia. It's more than just giving them tools on how to relax, but really finding out what is that reason why they're not falling asleep, getting to the root of the anxiety, talking to the body if it has one of these sleep disorders, it's not breathing properly, even psychologically, the terrors and anxiety that keeps waking them up, like working with the cause, a psychological cause, versus just treating, again, the symptom on a surface level. But, the relaxation works really well. If you can start with that, that's really powerful.
Yeah, the relaxation response, it's such a primal element of our mind body, and we don't take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. Just like deep sleep, when we are in deep relaxation, there's a lot of repair going on. Where a lot of the great neurotransmitters and these endorphins that make us feel really good are kicking in and doing great work in the body and the mind, meaning they can work on mood disorders as well.
Relaxation puts the body automatically back in homeostasis, so it goes into a natural healing functionality where it's repairing and restoring the body. It also helps you emotionally stay calm and have a better peace of mind, and just overall joy. Just feel this like letting go.
Yeah, we know a lot of disorders now have to do with inflammation, and relaxation counters inflammation in the body. It allows it to relax, to kind of turn down the fire a little bit, turn down the heat.
So you don't have to tell your body what to do as much. If you just relax, the body's intelligence already works in your favor. It has an intelligence that knows the perfect formula or prescription for you to return to health.
Yes, and hypnosis, of course, as you were saying, well documented. It begins with Freud, and even before Freud learned it from Charcot, who was a French hypnotist to work with a lot of severely disturbed individuals. But then Freud took it to another level where he started to use it as suggestion, guided imagery, as a way to help people deal with their mind in the context of psychoanalysis. But then it's become its own thing, of course, because Freud dropped it, and then other people picked it up or kept working with it. And it's still with us today, well documented. It is considered a mind-body approach because you're tapping into the ability of the mind to speak to the body and suggest repair, betterment, less inflammation.
You can talk to the body directly and give it instructions.
Less pain.
Of what it should do.
Et cetera, et cetera. Guided imagery. Now, guided imagery is considered distinct than hypnosis. Especially in the research, it's done separately. But it's a powerful tool that we all have, and very few of us actually use it. We know in sports it's a powerful mechanism that they use, a powerful technique to improve performance.
They say Michael Jordan visualized every game, every shot at every game. I think Wayne Gretzky, the same thing, used imagery. Tiger Woods had a hypnotherapist work with him to use guided imagery. And it is so powerful. I have so many experiences personally with using it with clients and seeing a profound change in their health and their sleep, being able to see themselves in a beautiful place, letting go of the cares of the day and relaxing in that state where they can enter a deeper sleep.
Yes. So relaxation, hypnosis for insomnia, for even for sleep apnea, although sleep apnea might require a little bit of different approach. Um, but guided imagery right before you go to bed, very easy to do because you're already lying down and the lights are low or down or out, so you're able to visualize. And the more you can visualize relaxation, it's that counting sheep technique that
Well, I
your
have one.
grandmother taught you.
Well, more than counting sheep, I have a really. Do you want me to share my technique?
Yeah.
It's sort of like counting sheep, but if you ever have a trouble going to sleep, which we all have, imagine that there are 100 clouds in the sky, and each cloud has a number on it, starting at 100 all the way down to 1. You don't have to like conceptualize all of them, but just imagine all those clouds. And then what I want you to do is find cloud 100, start at the highest and work your way down, and imagine moving that cloud out of the sky, like letting the cloud move away, and then say deeper relaxed. And then go to 99, say the number, move it out of the sky, deeper relaxed. And you're just kind of focusing your mind. It gets you out of the whatever you're worried about or thinking. And it's that the ability to focus your mind is sort of like a meditation that eventually, usually by the time you get to 897, you're asleep. So you don't have to worry about counting all of them. But there's so many that you won't run out of numbers. And it's really a nice way. But you have to say deeper relaxed. You have to say the number, move it out, deeper relaxed. And I use it every time. I'm up worried about something or excited. Sometimes you can't sleep because you have something exciting happening the next day, or nervous about a presentation or big event that's happening, and you're just too excited and amped up. You use that really simple technique to go to sleep. And then the last one,
yoga. And by yoga, we mean mental discipline, which is the original intention of yoga, to be able to work with the mind so that it's not calling the shots, but you're calling the shots from that deeper layer of being, which is that pure awareness. And if you notice in yoga, Ashtanga yoga, meaning the Eightfold Path, the asanas are definitely a part of it, meaning the postures that people take in yoga practices. But then it goes on to pranayama, breathing techniques that work on relaxation. They kick in the relaxation response. They strengthen the body. They activate neuronal systems from within to do their job properly. Some of the positions also, they actively bathe some of the glands in blood and nourishing bloods so that they're able to do their work properly. And so it goes on, of course, into the mind. It's like yoga is saying you have to prepare the body, you have to prepare the mind for reaching those deeper states of awareness that will allow you to see reality for what it is. So after the pranayama, then the practice is to withdraw the senses, meaning that you're not caught up in the mind's daily activities. You're able to bring it into a focal point and concentrate it. And that's the next step. Once you withdraw the senses, or you're able to withdraw the senses, you focus the mind on one particular object, thought, image, candle, whatever you want to do, but focus it and hold it still, which is an incredible ability. And it doesn't take that much practice. A lot of people think, oh my God, that would take 20 years. But no, a few weeks of practice and you can start to see that you're able to train your mind to sit still, to become focused. After focus, then you're getting closer to meditation. That state of meditation is sometimes described as this continuous, unbroken flow of awareness. It's
like
not
that oil,
disrupted.
pouring a oil, and that stream of oil doesn't break.
That's right. That continuous stream of consciousness that's not disturbed by thoughts, emotions. It's a steady mind. And then after that comes liberation, samadhi. But it's a
So
very...
are you saying they should do that before they go to sleep, or?
Well, no, I'm just talking about the practice. What it's doing to the mind body, it's revitalizing it. It's disciplining the mind from within so that it's functioning a lot better. It's functioning not only functioning at normal states of function, but it's taking it to its optimum skill level.
So not just making you feel normal, but having extraordinary vitality.
That's
and
right.
mental clarity.
Mental clarity.
Spiritual fulfillment.
Yes.
Joy, bliss.
Right. Which is a holistic approach to the mind-body. So yoga, I would say, is the most powerful mind-body system that we know of because it addresses all those levels of existence. The physical, of course, is talking about not only proper behavior, moral behavior, but also observing your dietary habits, observing your sleep patterns.
Are you taking care of your body, drinking enough water, eating your vegetables, and making sure you're getting a lot of making sure you're getting lots of vitamins that you need, your nutrients.
And then through meditation, of course, you are reaching those deeper levels of awareness where you're restored to where perhaps you don't need as much sleep.
Or it enhances your ability because now your body has learned to crave it more and like kind of pull you there. So it's like planting that the treasure there and going, I want to go back every night to retrieve that immortality and sip from that nectar of immortality. You begin to, your body begins to want to do that, want to go there because it feels the effect of it.
Yeah, and it also, because it is a comprehensive approach, it gets to our Western diseases in a great way. If we look at modern medicine, it's very good at treating infectious diseases and emergency situations. But it's not very good at treating what is killing most people now.
The long-term impact of stress, anxiety, depression, unhealthy eating, unhealthy lifestyle.
Yes, which are considered lifestyle diseases.
Yeah, like just even during COVID, people were less active. People are less, not going to the gym as much because of, they wanted to stay isolated. They're working from home, many people. So you're sitting on your bum all day. So all those factors, and then, mixed with a stressful lifestyle that we have in the West, perfect recipe for illness. And even not only just physically, but feeling that lack of joy in life, lack of fulfillment and mental clarity and happiness.
Yes. So back to sleep apnea, because we mentioned it, but we didn't really kind of talk about how to address it. So sleep apnea, we know it's correlated also with belly fat, with other kind of illnesses that might be going on in the body, that are considered lifestyle diseases. Something in the pattern of behavior, pattern of eating, pattern of not sleeping or sleeping is playing into that disorder, sleep apnea, of stopping, a cessation of breathing during sleep. And so the approach has to be a comprehensive one. It has to be a change in the patterns of your diet, your lifestyle, your exercise, your weight, something like that.
And as well as, like, again, it's not just about taking care of the physical body, but taking care of your mind. Like, what kind of stressors do you have in your life? Or what are you doing to deal with things that are upsetting to you? How do you work with your emotions? All of those play a part in your body's physiology.
Yes. So I went through a period of sleep apnea a few years ago. And I decided I'm going to try to take care of this by changing my lifestyle. Instead of depending on medication or on the breathing apparatuses, the CPAP machines, I'm going to try to change it on my own.
Okay.
And it worked because if you pay attention to something, any symptom that appears in your body, whatever it is, if you pay attention to it and you resolve to address it and to persist in it, because sometimes
it's like
it will be difficult for you to find the solution.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes it's trial and error, because some things that work for some people don't work for others, and everyone has a unique chemistry in their body that certain foods trigger them and other foods don't, and it's just really custom way. You have to know your body more and pay attention to how you feel after you eat certain things, what happens when you sleep.
That's right.
I notice when I have a coffee after noon, I stay up later and stuff like that.
But I would say most people have difficulty with sleep apnea because they want a quick fix. In other words, they want the physician, the healer, the doctor to give them something and be done with it.
Yeah.
Solve the problem. But lifestyle changes are not that easy. You have to really look at, what am I doing and what am I eating? What is my pattern of managing anxiety, depression, whatever it is.
And we get stuck in our patterns, and it's really hard to change. Even if we try or have a conscious desire to, it's really hard because conditioning is so powerful.
Yes. But it's possible. Again, if you're suffering from these kind of disorders, do not give up. It does and will require some time, because we're talking about lifestyle, not infection. It's not a bug. It's not a bacteria. It's not one thing. Lifestyle meaning the way you're living and expressing your life. Therefore, you're going to have to look at everything and be willing to make those changes. But if you're willing to make those changes, you'll get at it. You'll find a way to get healthy again.
There's always that solution inside of you. Your body has the key. The intelligence within you has the key to transcend anything. So just knowing that and not giving up when a certain mechanism or treatment didn't work or dietary change doesn't work, just keep going and be committed to that it's there already. You just have to find it. It's like, the treasure's there. You just have to find where it is. And that is the key.
Certainly we know managing stress, one of the big key issues or factors that will play into illness and wellness. Exercise, meaning how much are you moving in your everyday life? Are you walking? Are you biking? Are you just sitting in your office working it that way?
We're watching streaming television for hours at a time.
You have to be realistic and observe yourself and say, I need to move. I need to find a way to move. And it doesn't have to be going to the gym. Find a creative way that works for you. Yoga, of course, is incredible because it includes that.
It's even as simple as just taking a walk.
Yes.
I think for me, it's mentally, not as much as exercise, but just mentally, just to take a walk and get away from your normal routine and clear your mind.
Diet, what we put in our body becomes our body. We know The mechanism is that we put something in the body, the body breaks it down, tears it apart into molecules, and then uses those molecules to reconstruct the organs from within. So you are made out of the food you eat. Your body is made out of the food you eat.
So next time you look at that greasy burger, say, am I becoming a greasy burger? What is this doing to my body? It's just, I think a lot of times we think about what it's happening in our mouth and the taste and the flavor, but then what happens after you swallow? Like what happens inside the system that you're allowing into your temple?
Yes. So think clean food, filtered water.
Organic if you can.
Organic, non-pesticide food if you can, absolutely. And then sleep, which is what we were talking about. Deep sleep, deep restorative sleep. Look at the patterns of your sleep. Are you getting 7 hours of sleep? If not, think of a way to improve that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So next week, we are going to talk about how to deal with pain. And we're not talking about emotional pain. We're talking about physical pain and how we can transcend pain and work with pain management, whether it's just simple headache or chronic pain. So to continue our Mind Body series, thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. This is Deborah and Rob, and we'll see you next week.